It's the Scratch Cast. Oh no, wait there. I fluffed the intro again. It's not the Scratch Cast. It's not the Scratch Cast. It is the Scratch Calf talking turntablism. It's an absolute atrocity. There is a podcast called the Scratch Cast that has absolutely nothing to do with scratching. They don't deserve that name. If any of you lot know how to take them down, please take them down because it's not on. But yeah, so today it's going to be a difficult one for me, especially. Not for Dan, because Dan's just going to nerd about scratching for the entire 2 hours. But I've got to say something nice about a friend of mine, Jimi Needles. Now, we all know how hard it is to say nice things about your friends, especially in front of them. So it's going to be a hard one for me, but I'm going to do my best to be nice to Jim. Jim is an absolute legend, and he moves on very nicely from DJ Random, because DJ Random is an originator. He's the old school. But Jimi Needles is a professional, full-time working DJ that incorporates the skill of turntablism. And
the modern man
in an old age. Now, he's called Jimi Needles. He doesn't use needles. We will go on that. He gets a lot of stick online. And I suppose it's time to bring him in.
Oi.
Don't shake your head at that, Jim.
Shaking my fucking head. That's a big in-joke right there, if you know about that.
Yeah, we'll get into your secret life as a troll at some point later in the podcast.
The only consequences for Jim's trolling seems to happen to me, by the way. If you go into that as
this is true.
I love that your trolling has reached a level that you've had to appoint an admin.
No, it's not even an admin.
He was an admin from day one.
And I get caught up in it. I commented on something. Right. I commented on one of his posts, and then the guy went on my business page, my debt repair page, and literally slammed me, and I lost a 5% star review. And then because I'm connected to that page, it was like, Mr. Gould, your page, we're not going to say what page it is not being shared due to the content. So basically, my entire Facebook account has been shadow banned because of him.
Wow.
Fabulous.
That was not my intention. We should start off with this. Fuck the DJ stuff. That can wait.
But what's really interesting is, right, you're managing to make a DJ career, a full-time DJ career, right, without getting thousands of likes, without being mental on social media, and you've managed to negotiate the horrible world of business DJing without having to sit on your keyboard all the time attempting to be accepted. So I think this is going to be a really good podcast for DJs that want to start, because you told me a really, really inspiring story. Now, I know you're a very humble guy and you probably don't see it as inspiring, but I'm going to tell you it is. So I would I would like to start with that.
I think that's a great place to start.
You told me the story of how you got into DJing, where you were before you started DJing, and it was a job. Was it in Tesco's?
It was at Sainsbury's, mate. Sainsbury's local.
Ooh. So let's hear that journey, mate. Come on.
You know, it's one of those things, being in the right place at the right time. I'm sure that the people that I was harassing with my mixtapes wouldn't say that. They'd be like, "Oh, that guy again." But I used to be an assistant manager. I used to sometimes open the store, and next door was this is in Southampton, by the way. Next door there is a Vodka Revs. Now, I thought Vodka Revs was like the epitome of cool. Back then, they were booking crazy stuff. They booked like
A-Skills did a mix for him, didn't he? It was wicked. Had a bit of Beardy Man on it as well.
There. I saw Cubit there in that venue, and then literally went to the start my shift the next morning next door. So
that's from a high to a low, isn't it?
For me, I was fresh out of uni. I had the experience of playing to, and if you're a student, they've got the shittest taste in music ever. So I had to find some kind of common ground between the student mainstream zeitgeist of what they were into, which was back then, they were like, the student union was saying, you must play cheese and R&B. And I was saying, you must play that as well as funk and soul and hip hop and drum and bass and garage. But of course, that was not the remit. It was just cheese and R&B. So I slowly did the kind of DJ Yoda thing, because I grew up with those mixtapes of trying to just squeeze in some scratching here and there, trying to win over that crowd. And I think I did it, but by the time I'd figured out how to do that, my university time was over and I'd moved from Winchester to Southampton. So when I got to Southampton, I was like, I can play to anyone now. I could still do my thing. I can play to any crowd. I need to see if I can get some work in some clubs because I'm fucking not working at this Sainsbury's for the rest of my life. And, you know, I had a degree, but that means absolutely nothing these days. I mean, you know what? I take that back. I did a history degree and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I didn't get a first. I got a 2-1. So that's all right. But, you know, I haven't used it apart from probably influencing my politics somewhat. But
no. I think people get very very mixed up with sort of education. Now, I think it's got very little to do with the subject that you actually do, and more to do with the discipline.
Yeah,
tickets to a game.
Yeah. The practice at applying yourself. And having to meet targets and deadlines.
Yeah.
So I think, you know what I mean. History. You're not going to do much with that, are you, Jim? Let's face it.
You're going to teach history, or you're going to be an academic. And
I'll be on time team. Jimmy Needles digs.
Exactly. I'll grow my beard and start cleaning up, and just like, you know. Oh. Well, you've seen that Eddie Izzard sketch. It's like we're going to we've been standing over this ruin, and we're very excited because the grass has gone from green to brown now.
Right, okay. Let's put it back on track. So what I'm interested in, what I think a lot of people would be interested in is your mindset from going from I've got a job in Sainsbury's. It's a good job. It's a legit job for anybody that's out there earning money. I've got a massive respect to. But you kind of felt like you could do music. And what was going through your mind when you were making that decision? I need to DJ. I think I can do it.
It was a crazy time because not only did I figure out by the end of my 3 years at uni, I figured out this is what I want to do. I have to be a DJ. Like you know, it was my calling. I just needed to get a way into actually earning from it. And if I could do that and been off my day job, then I could learn production. Whilst this was all happening, by the way, I was also teaching myself like the drums because I knew roughly how drums worked and stuff. And I played the turntables in like college bands and stuff in university. But towards the end of university, I started playing drums and started learning to play drums just to play in this band that I played the MPC for. I used to play the MPC drums and stuff. And they were like, can you see if you can just actually get on a kit and play drums? And I said, sure, I'll figure it out. So I was not only like a you know, up and coming scratch DJ or whatever, but I was trying to learn drum theory. I even got some lessons as well. So it's all happening at
crossover though. It's got to be a good crossover.
And we'll come back to that because there's a lot of crossover. If you play drums and you scratch, in fact, if you play any instrument and also DJ and scratch, that is you start to notice.
Really
and you can
helpful.
kind of see how things developed. It actually is like, you know, kind of techniques go anyway. But
when I first saw you scratch, I was watching your wrist and I was like, that motherfucker has been drilling jazz hi-hats.
Yeah, well,
I could see it.
The paradiddle comes out in things like swing flares and, you know, I mean, it's a very similar...
You know, it's called on the stick, it's called the molar or the molar stroke, where you kind of, you go down, and when you come up, you get a free one. So if you're doing
2 for 1, yeah.
Not only you get an extra hit, not only getting an extra hit.
That didn't take him long, did it? That didn't take him long.
Just by the way, for the listeners, just so that you're all aware, we had a small conversation before this where something quite lewd was sent into the private chat.
Who said that then?
Followed by a discussion
that was obviously me.
About how this episode is going to be called Unzipped with Jimi Needles. So anyway,
I think we should just stop with the DJ talk now and just talk about
Well, okay, well,
go on to your OnlyFans. We'll get onto that in a bit.
Yeah.
Let's get back into it, and we'll move from the lewd into the technical, and that is wrist action, Jim.
Right. So what you do is you go down and you go up, and you get a free hit on the way up. And I can kind of see where the turntablist that might have also been drummers would have got that from, because I mean, when you're scratching with the fader, you don't have gravity on your side. You're going sideways. So you have to create that spring action with your finger or your thumb, depending on the style. So, but with the drumming, it was like, oh, cool. That's just like the flare, or just like a 3-click flare, because you can do a 3 like molar stroke and go da, 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 da. And not only do you get like 3 clicks, but you get different accents as well. So every time you do it, it's a slightly different sound. There's a slightly stronger hit on the way down and then slightly weaker one on the way up. And I got that, and I got that very quickly, and I picked that up very quickly. And before I knew it, the band had got signed to the band was Hannah Williams and the Tastemakers. They're signed to back then they were signed to a record label in Italy. So we were just getting booked and in all over Europe because I was so well connected, and it was nuts because I got to travel a bit. I got to do a bit of DJing. So simultaneously, when this happened, the kind of like the job at Sainsbury's with the at the checkouts and the bakery and opening the store and stuff. Next door would come in from their night shift and get all the baked goods because we'd cook those at like 5 a.m. Right. Every time this guy Mark would come in, absolute legend. He'd come in and he'd bring he'd bring bags of change in, and I'd sort him out. So I'd go to the safe and sort the change out for his float because he didn't have enough or whatever. And I was like, "So you're looking for DJs?" And he was like, "No, fuck off." Right? I mean, he didn't say fuck off, but it was like I could just see he was like, "Fuck off." And one day, I just went into the studio in my little flat in Southampton, and I recorded like an hour and a half mix of. It was like early ghetto funk, classic hip hop, new hip hop, dubstep, drum and bass, some funky stuff in there, loaded it with scratching. And I was like, look, I've made this CD for you. It was a CD, right? CD.
Yeah. Don't show off about CDs. I came from
in my day. And I was like, he goes, okay. He took it. He actually took it. And I was like, he's never going to listen to that ever. And 2 months had passed, maybe 3. I can't recall. But I just get this phone call out of the blue, and he goes, "You're the guy from Sainsbury's." Because I'd already walked out of my job at this point, so I was actually unemployed, and I was in a lot of financial trouble. My own boss didn't give me my dad's 50th birthday off, and I walked out. I was like, "Fuck this! Like, you're a dick. You're a massive."
Good on you, mate. Good on you.
It's my dad's 50th birthday. I booked it in the diary. It says there.
And we're going to be clear that this is not a comment on Sainsbury's management style. We actually are not saying anything bad about Sainsbury's, just in case this blows up. This is just one man being a bad manager at some place.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure he's not there anymore. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, he wouldn't give you the 50. He wouldn't give you your dad's birthday off. You walked out, and then you were in no man's land.
I walked out, and I got the call, and he was like, "This is the guy." He invited me to the venue, and he was like, "This is you, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah." When can you start? This is awesome. I was like, he had like 2 bar staff with him that are still my friends today, and they were like, we all finished our shift and put it on downstairs, and all the staff apparently just vibing. So,
oh mate. It's lovely when someone listens to your mix.
Like,
do you know what I mean?
And I was like, I must have had about, it's like early SoundCloud. I probably had about 500 or 600 followers at the time. So I then put that mix up on SoundCloud before the takedowns and stuff. It was, quite safe to do that back then. Yeah. And it's just started getting love from like loads of different people. It was getting shared by people like Featurecast. It was shared by these old breakers. I love these guys, Ben and Lex. I don't know if you know those guys. They're like cut and paste, old school. They use like the Amen break and everything, but it's always funky, and they always put in hip hop references in. And they shared it. They're like, this mixtape is ridiculous. I was like, what's going on? And like followers went up, and they gave me 2 gigs at Revs, right? And it was slightly more money than working 4 days a week full time at Sainsbury's. So I was like, I could actually do this. And then the band started going away on tour as well. And it just kind of all happened. Like, all this stuff from behind the scenes, all that kind of wishing it actually started to happen. And I think after I'd heard a few DJs and producers play a certain style of music, and then we'll get back to that, is the ghetto funk stuff, right?
I love that stuff, man. I mean, I know.
Exactly.
Yeah, just all those guys, so brilliant. Anyway, yeah, we'll pick that up.
And this is another one of those weird full circle moments. Now, like with the kind of funky breaks thing kind of blowing up. I don't know if you guys remember the first iPod advert.
Yeah.
It was all like kind of all the break dancing. It was all like only 2 colors at one time. So it was like the break dancers were like black silhouettes, and the background was all like different colors. The tune that was playing over that, it was basically handpicked by Steve Jobs. Apparently, it was shortlisted. It was either Timbaland or a guy from Southampton called Featurecast.
There you go.
So I was like, and he was like, no, this Featurecast tune, that's the one. And they picked that over like hundreds of different, like, tunes that they shortlisted. And then I realized, I was like, I've got that vinyl. I've got that vinyl on Catskills Records. I got it. And I was like, that guy is playing a venue in Southampton. I've got to go and meet this guy because he's already shared one of my mixes.
He's stopped now, isn't he? He's doing like computer games, I think, isn't he? Feature cast.
Yeah.
He's bowed out of it now. But
I think he's just found a really fun. He's found a really fun niche, and he's just going with it. And I think that's
all those guys like Sticky Buds and good times.
You can't. I think sometimes you hit a peak, and you don't know how to. We'll get onto that as well because you hit a peak, and you're like, well, how can I go to the next level? And you've always got to think about the next level. And his music will always be like timeless to me. But seeing that in the flesh and seeing like, students and like everyday people just having an absolute blast to this guy, just mashing up all these genres at different tempos. I was like, okay, so that's where I want to be. That's the kind of where the bar is set. The bar seems to be a DJ set that's full of your own remixes and edits, scratched and mixed seamlessly. That's going to rock a crowd. That seems to be the bar for me. I can do that, but now I need to get into production. And now I had all this free time because I wasn't working stacking shelves anymore. I started learning. Well, I started using Sonic Foundry. It was Acid Pro. I don't know if you remember.
I used to have that. That was amazing.
Well, apart from it crashing every 5 minutes, it's a brilliant piece of software. And I'd like, don't add reverb because if I add reverb, it will crash. And I'm like, oh, that sounds amazing.
What year was this, Jim?
This would have been, well, the thing is I was using Acid Pro since I was like 15 because I had a mate who gave me a crack. So I was like, I just use that. But then Sony bought it and did nothing with it. And then every time I actually bought it, it was so unstable on my computer that you couldn't really get much done. So I'd usually get to the end of like the arrangement of a tune and never mix it down, just bounce it as it was and then just put it out on SoundCloud and see if anyone actually would like enjoy it. And people are still like, oh, I swear by those old Jimmy Needles tunes. So they're not even mastered. Like, what are you talking about? But,
it's the nostalgia.
What's mastering? What's mastering? I don't even know what mastering is. I didn't even know what that was. Exactly. So, it was all like, it was a massive learning curve. I was always open to like learning new things. And then I've been in Southampton probably doing this for about a year. And then I moved to London where things really kind of blew up. Like they just blew up big time. As soon as I moved to London, I started getting like recommendations.
Oh, what? You did the move to London thing?
Had to, because the scenes in like cities, I don't think Bristol was like this at all, but it used to be like that. There was lots of different cliques, and I think scratch DJs. And I literally have spoken to so many turntablists about this. I think there's no space for them in a clique, and I think it's because people feel a little bit threatened by them. And I hate to say that, but like I was like, instead of just being like, oh well, everyone's against me or no one's booking me for their nights, I was getting booked. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted to play those nights. I was like, the only way I'm going to be able to get booked at these nights is just by being better. So I was like, fuck it. I'm moving to London. It's too big for cliques in London. It's just too big. So you can't.
And it's so anonymous as well,
Yeah.
And I think that's why it has always dominated in various areas. It was quite interesting talking to Random in the last episode because he said, it felt London centric, but he knew that it was going on in, Nottingham and Sheffield and all these other places. But London has always had that, like, it's just like a rich bed of like, it'll if it's good in London, it'll fly,
Absolutely.
Whereas it's a bit more difficult wherever you go. I think Bristol's challenging as well. I think you have to know people in Bristol to get into the scenes.
But it's not hostile. I think people would, instead of being like, fuck that guy, would give you mad props. Like if you saw like someone playing some like garage heaters, you'd be like, that's sick, as opposed to now, I'm not looking that guy. That's kind of the vibe in that city, in Southampton. It was a bit like that. This is like 15 years ago, so things have changed. People have grown up a bit, but that's how it felt to me. And watching how I was surrounded myself with other DMC and breakbeat people in Southampton, and they all felt the same. It was like, why are we not getting booked for these nights? It was like, well, you could start your own, or you just try and be better. It'd be better than you are, be better than that attitude, that kind of cliquey bouginess. And we just kind of You didn't call it that back then, but we knew something was a bit weird. So we were like multi-genre DJs. So it was, you know,
well, that was the beginning of that.
It was early on.
That was the beginning.
Format, yeah.
I mean, I was at my most active as a DJ back then, and I can remember the rave scene was you either play drum and bass, techno, hardcore gabba, happy hardcore, garage, or house. You don't go between. You don't mix them up. People are there.
I definitely learned the hard way because there was an amazing record shop in Southampton. I can't actually remember the name of it now. It will come to me. But the guy who ran it, Anil, he ran some amazing like drum and bass and jump up nights in Southampton called Paradox, and he started selling 12 inches of dubstep and stuff as well. And a lot of the drum and bass crew were like quite hostile towards it.
Oh no! In drum and bass, if you were going to a jump up night and you played a jungle tune, you go to a jungle tune, you play a jump up tune.
The dude exactly, man, and he put faith. He was like, Jimmy, why don't I just give you like room 3 and you just do dubstep, and then in room 2 is going to be jungle, and because jump up was huge at the time, jump up in room 1. And like room 3 was like dubstep and kind of electro drum and bass. It was a cool room, and we'd do that like maybe like once every like 3 or 4 months. And because I was bringing turntablism to it as well, just kind of layering stuff, I was already doing edits, but I was using Serato, so I was already getting like all the junglists were like, he's cheating, he's playing dubstep and he's cheating. Never that. And there's like, but then like all the guys at the front are just like, this is crazy. Like, let's go. Like, you know, and that was my kind of entry into the festival, getting that festival sound, because from that I kind of got into more like proper breakbeat. I rediscovered breakbeat probably from that, because I already was aware of it, but I was like, no one's really playing this anymore. So that's kind of changed now. Again, garage never dies, but you know, that's kind of
garage is on its 6th revival, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, the stuff that's coming out at the moment on the UK garage scene is great though, because it's that nice mashup of like, feels old school, but it's all new sounds.
Yeah,
you know, they've done a really nice job of that, I think, because it brings
great
all ages to the rave.
Exactly. No one hates garage, right? I'm
going to get my bold patch out and I'm going to say the kids have ruined it. They've ruined it.
God damn it.
So should we move back to scratching? Now we need to tie something up, right? And we're going to do our first segment of a monthly. See what Random thinks about this.
We will improve the jingle over time.
No, that's a perfect jingle.
You know, you're talking to a producer right here. I could help you guys out, you know.
Will it be mastered, Jimmy?
Right, yes. So we're going to call Random now.
Oh, fucking hell.
What do
you fucking want?
Right, Random. Right, Jimmy Needles thinks that the Qbert tip is better than the Shure M447.
I did not say that.
Fucking Qbert needles are absolute fucking dog shit.
I didn't say that.
Well, you did say that. That was it.
That's all we get.
Right, you're wrong, Jim. You did say that. We caught you.
Now he's going to think I'm a massive prick. He already thinks I'm a prick.
Right, so let's move it on to scratching.
So yeah, tell us a bit about scratching then, mate. What really got you going on it? Why did it become a part of what you were doing?
It all spans from my parents and their horrendous taste in music.
Okay.
You know what? That's actually not fair. Like, I'd say 50% of my parents' music is just like chef's kiss, but the other half is so just demonstrably shite.
What is it? What was the shite part? Well,
let's start with the good stuff. My mum and dad loved Chic, Sister Sledge, classic disco, James Brown. What else? Like Pink Floyd.
Nice.
And then to flip it on its head, my dad's into like, he's into like some shite. What is it? I'm like, how can you live? Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, fucking shite.
What are you talking about?
Fucking garbage. Boring.
About?
Fucking boring.
What?
Absolute shite.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers?
Garbage.
Dan?
I'm not getting involved.
And And like, just as if you want to giggle, I was when you do that thing where you start raiding your parents' record collection.
Yeah.
I was going through there one day. I need to Google this real quick. Is it who's that tune that goes boom shakalaka? That tune. Oh fuck.
Is
it Apache Indian? Is that it?
Up the wiggle your belly. That was Jack Demus and Pliers.
Right. So I found a copy of that on 7-inch in. I was like, brilliant. This looks like fun. Turned over and there's like some like writing and stuck to the top of the sleeve at the back on the back. And I was like, dear Tom, that's my mum's writing. Dear Tom, you can boom shakalaka me any time of the day. And I was like,
that's worse than a caught masturbating story.
I know. That's like
finding the 14-inch wobbly sausage in the drawer.
So naturally, I remember physically being so disgusted because I was in the attic at the time going through all these records. I threw it across into the blackness of the dark of the attic. It was never to be seen again.
The blackness of the dark.
I was like, no, it's gone. It's gone. And like, I recently brought that story up at a family reunion and everyone fucking rinsed, not only me for reading it, but my parents as well. But yeah, so that was, don't go crate digging in your parents' record collection. It's always going to end badly. So anyway.
But I said, when I started this podcast, Dan, right?
Yeah.
I did not expect that. I did not expect that. And the worst, do you know what? Do you know what's really interesting to me? Right?
What's that?
Was that the tune of Jimi Needle's Inception?
Probably.
Was that, we're coming up to Valentine's Day. This will air after Valentine's Day, but I can see the whole thing happening. I can see his mum going out, listening to the Boom Shakalaka song, thinking, "Oh, I really want to get drilled by that song,
Jimmy."
And then she brings the record back, right? And then she writes it to your dad. They have a bottle of wine, and then they have a romantic night to Boom Shakalaka. Right? And then that is the night that Jimi Needles is incepted.
To be honest with you, even if that isn't the truth, it has now just.
That is now how Jimi.
To be fair, if you want to go full detective on this, there was a storm in September 1988, 1987. A storm in 1987.
Yeah,
apparently that was the night I was conceived. So there you go.
1987.
September 1987. There was a storm.
Hurricane.
Hurricane.
Riders on the storm.
Big tune. There you go. So if that tune was out before then you're right.
Somebody Google that.
The course of history.
Somebody Google that and put that in the comments, please.
Do not Instagram me. I do not want to know the answer to that. Thank you, guys.
We're telling you. Don't you worry about that. You're going to be on again, and the cliffhanger will be. What's the word, Dan?
I'll have to ring my parents and get them live on the air and be like, so
that would actually be the best thing ever.
So records. So records and a kind of terrifying love story. What comes next in the story of why Jimi Needles starts scratching?
Well, it actually starts with a CD because CDs in my household, at least in the mid-90s, they were very rare. I actually think my parents only had a CD player in one of their cars, so there wasn't actually one in the house. But there was, I don't know if you guys remember, but you could, in the mid-90s, there was a thing, it was actually early 90s, you could save the vouchers on a bottle of Coca-Cola and then send off for a CD that would have music on it. And it had, they had done that and got sent a CD. The track listing was stuff like Meatloaf, Prefab Sprout, Deacon Blue, like kind of poppy rock stuff. CNC Music Factory, Everybody Dance Now. That's a big tune that was on there. There were 10 tunes on that. Last record, Public Enemy, Fight the Power.
No way.
Right?
Oh, what?
Right. So I think I must have been about 6, maybe 5 or 6. And I got my first CD player, my Bush Hi-Fi, put it in. I would listen to all the tunes. I didn't really know. I didn't really know what I was listening to. I was like, this is the only CD I've got. Fuck it. And it goes. And that last track just talked to me. I was like, I don't know what this is about, but I get they're trying to communicate something. There's a middle eight that's got scratching in it. And I was like, what is that? Don't know what that is. This is like 7-year-old me. There's a middle eight. It's got scratching in it. It's awesome. You got to fast forward now. You got to fast forward to like 14-year-old me because a lot happens between then and then. When I was 14, I got my first set of Argos CD decks. Now,
Very nice.
Ooh,
proper
very
shit.
nice.
They were shit. They were called home mix.
Nice.
And you couldn't manipulate the CD. This is before CDs, like, scratching was a thing. And
Yeah.
I think it was I saved my lunch money for, like, I'd like take my mum's £10 every week for my lunch money and then make a sandwich anyway. So she didn't know. So I just pocket this. I just pocket
And now
it.
she does.
Oh, she knows now. She's like, oh, that's where all the bread went, you little shit. But yeah, she knew. She knew that was like, I was like, why are you giving me this money if I'm making a packed lunch as well? But she was like, well, So sometimes I'd save it. Sometimes I'd buy CDs. I'd buy music and stuff. And I think by the end of like the third term in maybe year 8 or year 9, I bought these CD decks, and I was like, this is great fun, but I can't do anything with them. So then started saving for vinyl decks, and I'd already pilfered all my parents' vinyls, as you well know.
Of course.
From
Your prized boom shakalaka 12
minus that one cursed 7 that we
you
don't talk
took
about.
that. Don't even act like you didn't take that.
Did not take it. It's never been seen again. Garbage. And that was a learning curve, because it was like I bought the kind of the belt drive intro setup from Hard to Find Records, and it was 2 Newmark 1650s. They look fucking cool.
I had them.
Oh,
beautiful.
Did you?
Yeah.
No, I lied. They were they're direct drive versions.
Well,
they were
direct drive. Yeah,
slightly. So if you sneezed on them, they wouldn't skip. So they were slightly better than the belt drive one. But the mixer was all right. The mixer was the Behringer, whatever you call it, VMX 100, and the only reason I bought it, I was like, it's got a crossfader curve. I'm pretty sure I know what that means, because I'd never really seen scratching on DJing in the flesh before. This is nuts, because I actually hadn't. I just was aware. I think I'd learned at school what hip hop was more than, and I couldn't put together that Fight the Power tune was a hip hop record. I didn't know it. I didn't know what that was. So all these things were just coming together and being like, oh, this is hip hop. Okay, so you get scratching in hip hop. Okay, I need turntables, not CDs. Cool. Tick, 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 tick. And then the mixer actually came with a really decent crossfader. So I was able to do some stuff on that. And then I got very, very, very bored of that mixer very, very quickly. Even though it had this little stereo widening knob on it, I was like, aren't I fucking cool with my stereo widening knob, which no one's going to appreciate at home or in the club.
When they run it mono in the club, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, where are the vocals gone? Oh, there they are. like, God. So all this shit came together, and I think it was in my maybe year 10, I did the lunch money trick again and got myself, where is it? Here we are, actually. Here's one I made earlier. This bad boy.
Oh,
right, so I knew this was coming up.
I've got mine somewhere in here as well.
Okay, so make no mistake, this is the original underneath inside part, but Tim, absolute G.
Mixer remix.
Back to life. Mixer remix. Yeah.
Shout outs to Tim.
Absolute
part
G.
of the Scratch Calf, as you are, Jim, and Tim is the foundation of the Scratch Calf crew.
It is. Do you know what? No, do you know what? It's thanks to Jimmy.
Yes,
that the Scratch Cafe exists, because
that's it.
What Jimmy did. So I played a night with Jimmy for Fitboy Records. In fact, and Jim very kindly invited me to come and have a scratch in his studio. And he ran a few jams, which was just really, really lovely and really, really enjoyable. But then it becomes quite difficult to keep running these things. So, and
having 2 kids, huh?
It's through that, it's through that got to know you a little bit.
So this is when it gets even funnier. That's how it happened. This is when it gets even funnier, because Jim called me up to sort out your decks.
Yeah.
Right? Jim was like, my mate's got these decks. I didn't really know Jim, but Jim had found me from somewhere. And then Jim called me up.
Someone recommended you. Yeah,
somebody recommended me to do your decks. Jim called me up. I was like, yeah, of course I'll do them, blah, blah, blah. Got chatting. Oh, you're Jimmy Needles. Oh, I do a bit of scratching, blah, blah, blah. By the way, Dan chose one of my competitors back then.
I did.
Those decks came to me at a later date.
Guys, I still need my 15%. I've been waiting for like 2 years.
You're owed more than 15%. But anyway, we got to talking about chatting, and Jim was like, "Oh, you should come to my scratch thing I do at my house." I never managed to get there. It never worked out. And then just to the point where I was able to come, Jim was like, I can't do it. 2 kids, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, God, we should just start
what
one.
a twat.
We should just start one ourselves. And I was like, who is obsessed and dumb enough to start a scratch jam with me? And I was like, Mr. Big Mouth.
Who can it be?
Didn't really know him. And I would just message him. I was like, Dan, blah, blah, blah. We need to do this. Blah, blah, blah. Let's do it. And Dan was like, yeah. Jim, we're going to do this. We're going to take the burden off of your home.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Your scratch jam was the inception of the scratch cat.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was, mate.
It was a little more kind of. So this is my studio I'm in right now, but I've had the table shortened because I just can't. There's just no time for it anymore. Like, when you have one kid, you've got like 95% of your free time has vanished. But when you have 2 kids, these are your words, Dan, by the way, not mine. When you have 2 kids, that last 5% of free time that you have is now
Squeezed.
gone.
Yeah,
gone.
yeah. You're now at 99.9%.
Exactly. So there's like
else.
that 0.01% is either scratch jam or go and have a wank. So
yeah. Well, Dan's gone into
we were always going to lose in that one.
Dan's gone into God mode. Too many things to do. I get messages from him at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you know what I mean? He's like, sleep. Bah!
Yeah,
sleep.
I'll sleep when I'm dead. I just think, like, do you know what? And actually, it's quite an interesting topic, mate, because what I know that we have a lot of listeners who have been passionate DJs at some point in their lives. And then what inevitably happens is you have a family and responsibilities get on top of you and you have to say goodbye to certain things or you have to put certain things on the back burner. And that goes on for a number of years. And I guess, and we get a lot of people who are just like, oh, I wish I'd kind of carried that on, or, and they can get stuck into the thought of, oh, actually, I'm not talented enough or whatever else. And it's not really talent, it's time, right? It's like focused time that helps you get to where you're going. And so, I'm obviously, it's not my full-time career or anything like that. So I don't have the luxury of time that I can dedicate to it that pays my bills necessarily. But be really interested to hear your perspective now, as a person with loads of life responsibilities, but is also managing this as a professional career. What's that like? Because, the timings of when you do these gigs, like, how does that work for you, mate?
Oh, there's a lot to unravel there. So if you'd asked me this in my 20s, I'd be like, with no commitments apart from, long-term girlfriend and stuff, I would have said, play as much as you want, but it changes massively. Like, and I think the difference between your 20s and your 30s, when you have kids in your 30s, is time becomes your biggest resource.
Yeah.
Some pretty weird stuff happened this year, actually. Like lots of kind of venues, like regular venues I've started playing at over the years have basically all had kind of these weird kind of paradigm shifts where they've either got new management, they've closed down, which is obviously the story with a lot of venues at the moment. But I end up taking a lot of my time traveling and playing these venues, quite long sets as well. And not only did I've lost actually this year, I've actually lost 3 residencies because of just weird stuff happening, like shifts, things getting shut down. And I was like, you know what? Actually, the time, I get my time back. Sure, I lose the money from those, but I can now invest my time in other things that I deem important, like my music production or having a practice, or actually being there at the weekends as well, because that's important.
Yeah. Hey, family time is really important, mate.
And a lot of DJs who are full-time fail to get that balance. And I tell myself every day that I don't want to be that guy that gets to 45 and then lose my wife and lose my kids because I've not been at the weekend. And we're always hot on the communication. Like when the gigs come in, for instance, I've already got my holiday within the summer holiday, blocked out. So there's no gigs happening in there. My agent knows that. My wife knows that. I know that as well. Even if the best gig ever comes in, family time.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that, if you don't put your foot down, then you'll never, ever have, that separation. And then going back to something that you said at the very beginning, how do you balance that all between I think it was making content and production and scratching and gigging and stuff.
Yeah.
That just, I said this to my wife, Laura, the other day. I said, it feels like every year that goes by, there's now another thing that I have to learn.
You have to do.
Yeah.
So this is a night, playing a dive bar on a Friday night versus learning to do some like video editing that could potentially get me bigger gigs than that. I think that long term is more important. So over the last 18 months, sure, it's CapCut, but it's free software. It's powerful enough to do what I need.
CapCut's half decent,
It's
as
decent,
well.
And I don't, it looks like an audio editor, but in video form. It took me weeks to get my head around it. I just Google the stuff I don't know. Get ChatGPT on WhatsApp on your phone. If you don't know something, ask it, and then you know how to do it. It's easy. So I'd say always be open to learn new shit. It's just like new scratch techniques or studio things. Always, because it always opens doors. Always opens doors.
Well, you've got two avenues, haven't you? Right? You've got the avenue of be the best at something, really niche,
which never ever happens.
Which never ever happens. Just so that we're all clear, right? You can have some luck and be in that position, but generally speaking, becoming the best at something is very challenging. There's always someone better than you, and the best is always a point in time, right? So it's difficult to kind of maintain that. The alternative is the combination of stuff. Be proficient in a number of different things and combine those in a unique way, and that gives you an edge. And I feel like, because the DJ game has changed a lot, right? You used to go and spin records, and your value was tied up in the fact in whether or not you had records, right? Because it was.
Oh yeah, exactly. And if you discovered them first, exactly.
It's like, well, we need someone who's got enough vinyl to play for 6 hours. Like, have you got enough vinyl? Firstly, and then from there. But nowadays it's like right, like anyone can play anything at any time off any platform. What is it that's different, and what is it? And have you taken like a conscious approach to that, would you say, or has it been something that's kind of evolved organically over time?
Yes
Very
and
good
no.
question.
Yeah, that is actually a really good question.
Very good.
And I don't think it will make or break people, but I think for myself, I'm a late adopter but fast learner. Technology, for instance, like Phase, it took me about 3 years to get on board with that, but it changed my life completely.
It took a needleless gig.
Jimmy, no needles. I knew it. I knew it was coming. Fuck. Oh no!
Do you know what? That was the gig, wasn't it? That was the gig that changed it.
You got to tell everyone now. Oh god. Oh no!
So it was the Thick Boy Records gig, wasn't it? And and it was a Turntablist special night. So there was me, there was Mr. Fitz, there was X-Ray Ted, and there was yourself on the bill. And obviously Mark was doing his Pizza Andre stuff, and I think
Pizza
was
Andre
doing her thing as well.
Big tunes.
He just plays cheese at the beginning. It's brilliant. Honestly, it's hysterical.
People walk in like empty room, like what the fuck, and then just walk straight out again. That was my plan.
He's just he's a great guy, and that's just a great idea. I think it's really funny. But it was a Turntablist night, so we're all kind of up there. We're all doing our thing. We're all doing some scratching, but we are playing at what is effectively a UKG bass house label with a bit of jazzy, funky sound to it. And I just remember X-Ray Ted was doing the intro for you on the mic, and he was like, and here's one of the best turntablists I know. He's absolutely amazing at scratching and cutting and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then Jimi Needles' set had 0 scratching in it. And we were like, what's going on? And it's because he's up there having to push buttons because his needles snapped within about 5 minutes.
It's even worse than you imagine. This is why, staying up to date with technology and not being a gatekeeper snob is very important, because not only did my needles not work on my own vinyl, but the turntables were also mine, and nothing in a line. So, when you open Serato and you look on the kind of the wave meter, and you're meant to have perfect circles on each channel, beautiful perfect circles. There was like shapes that I couldn't even describe being like drawn by the static, and I was like, how is that even possible? Just like
it looks like something out of Venom.
Just like eating my computer. I had to play the whole set basically on like pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the keyboard for my cue points, and then nudging it using the pitch bend. And because I am so worried about turning up playing a show like that. Most of my edits, every tune that I have when I play out has an a cappella intro, and I've and or an a cappella outro or a beat outro, and then a bit of silence and then some samples. So I can, instead of having to load and touch the laptop, in theory, I can just literally go, okay, I'm going to use that Pella again, jump to that part.
Nice.
Bit kind of, how you prepare a DMC routine, but not as hectic, I'd say.
I do a similar thing, by the way. I think it's a really useful tool to use your cue points in a really specific manner so that you've got a cappella exits, you've got beat-based exits, you've got melody-based exits, all just at the tip of your fingers,
Exactly.
regardless of what you're playing next. It's a really useful tip for anyone listening if you're thinking about your cues. It's a good way to go about
But
things.
that requires, again, like basic production skills. You
It
can
does.
go and you can do that in a day and figure it out, So luckily it was still a seamless set. There was just no cherry on top. Because for me, scratching isn't the main event, but it's seasoning. It's the cherry on the top. It's not like, and I as I get older and as mature as an artist, lol.
Mature like a cheese.
Yeah, you literally where you looked was where the group chat. Yeah, so it was just okay. I'm not going to say what's up there, but it's very offensive and childish.
Oh my god!
Jimmy,
can I view this? Can I view this group chat? No. So that gig was just like, people are like, what's going on with this guy? He's not even scratching. What could be wrong? And it was the entire setup was wrong. Like the turntables were just fuzz. The needles are buggered. They're old 447s, and the vinyls.
That's why you don't like 447s then, because they let you down.
No, I don't like them because they stopped making them. Traitors.
Yeah, no.
Jicko.
I bought one of those Jicko ones, whatever they're called, and I think I broke it in a day.
Did you?
So yeah, I was like, "Fuck this!"
Did you get the £100 Jicko, or did you get the cheap Jicko?
It had like the red. It was red. That's all I remember.
Yeah, those are the cheap ones. They make better ones.
Well, I wasn't going to stick around and find out because I'd already discovered Phase. So that gig is a very good example of why being prepared is important and staying up to date with the times. Because if I had just used Phase like all the grown-ups there, I would have been fine. There would have been no issue at all. I say that I have seen Phase go horribly wrong for people.
Phase can be a challenge. I mean, when I did DMC last year, and I was like, I'm going to have to do this on Phase, it genuinely filled me with fear.
Oh, really? Why?
Well, because I said when I first got my Phase. Now, just for full disclosure, Phase really sorted me out. They were really, really, really good actually as a customer service wise, but I had loads of problems with it. It knocked all my Wi-Fi out at home, and I was putting it because it operates on Wi-Fi, and it was just interfering with Wi-Fi. It destroyed my boiler because I spent a load of money on
Destroyed your boiler.
I spent a load of money on a posh boiler.
What?
Right, and the boiler required. Right, this is ridiculous.
Right, hang on.
But the boiler requires Wi-Fi.
We're in proper first world problem land now, aren't we?
Yeah. But you didn't think this was going to happen on this call.
It fucked your boiler up.
Yeah, my boiler I couldn't use anything on my boiler because it killed the Wi-Fi, and then we couldn't reconnect the Wi-Fi. So anyway, I went back to Phase, and they were really good. They sent me a new one.
Is that your new boiler? Good for them.
No. Yeah, it spins like this. It always knows which part of the record
Brilliant.
to play. And you can scratch on it. But so I had loads of problems with it. And basically, I did have a faulty one, so I sent it off to them. They sent it all back to me. They paid for all of that. I didn't have to pay for any of it. And then and then it was the updated firmware that really. And I was like, oh, do you know what, this works? I mean, there's still a ritual. I have to follow, but it is really tight, and I was really pleased with it. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I was like, oh god, I was kind of fearful of it. So I don't blame you for being slower to move on to that tech.
Well, I had seen it go a bit wrong with this is before the pandemic, and I think what actually saved Phase was the pandemic because everybody was just having a fucking rub at home, woof, and they collated all that data and just made it tighter and not go wrong. I've seen it. I've seen it in the flesh. I've seen it go wrong for Yoda, and I've seen it go wrong for Mr. Fitz at a gig that we did in Winchester in I think it was 2019. And I was like, hell no, can't beat the sound of Time Code. You know,
pull out the lovely sound of vinyl. No, nice, yeah. And so thinking about this, so and on the topic of vinyl, of course, this
plug
this thing here, right?
Go on, Em.
Jimi Needles' album on 12-inch. It's also all over the place on Spotify and all those wonderful places. Obviously, so we've had some conversations about this along the way, Jimmy, and and I think there's this thing, clearly from what we've heard today, there's this sort of backdrop of, you were into the musicianship a bit, you were playing kind of MPC drums for a bit, finger drumming, then into the drumming. You've played in bands. We know from, that you are, of course, a DJ, but you are a DJ in things like orchestras and, other elements of stuff. And I suppose, one of the reasons that we sort of talked earlier about how you're kind of the modern turntablist, if you like, is because you have kind of all these strings to your bow. And the latest string is, of course, the fact that you have now released an album and you've released it independently. So I'd love to hear a bit more about, firstly, why did you start making original music?
I think the time had come where I felt confident in my ability to remix stuff that I would play out and be happy with and watch people enjoy, to the point that when I applied that same level of production to original ideas, they would also bang in the club or sound nice as well and flow well. And I think the record, it's a little stab at all these little genres, but it still has a sound. Like, these are all the kind of things I'm into. I'm into hip hop. I'm into kind of this bouncy hip hop. I'm into this breakbeat. I'm into drum and bass. I'm into Latin. I'm into funk. I'm a turntablist by heart, but not a battle DJ. So you can hear the musicality come through. And I think being surrounded in my early 20s with jazzes probably helped a lot as well, because they were all jazz musicians when I was, with the soul bands. Mm-hmm. But as a drummer, you can't hear my drumming on the record, but you can kind of hear the influences of where I've come from, I suppose. And I think there's only so many mixtapes you can put out before people just want to hear what you've got to say as an artist. And I think it's just sticking with, like, in my head, I was like, it's got to sound like this. And I actually believed in myself enough to get it over the finish line and then go, it sounds coherent after a few listens to me. And that was the most important thing as well. Like, the musicality, the coherent kind of ness of the record, and did it sound sonically good enough? And when I was happy with it, I actually sat on it for about maybe 7 months and was like, you know what, I'm going to do the 12-inch, because that way people will have a piece of my history as opposed to just an MP3 on a hard drive. Because I've been featured on vinyl before, don't get me wrong. I've had remixes and original tunes released on record before, but never an original album. Like, it's just, and when it was finished, like, when you were asking about record labels and stuff, the labels really like it if you're just one thing.
Yeah.
They don't know how to pitch it if you're hip hop, drum and bass, breakbeat. They don't know how to do it. Now, someone
they have to make a niche, right? They have to.
It's anti-advertising, isn't it?
Yeah,
you're supposed to find your niche.
But this is the thing that puzzles me, because what I actually really wanted instead of a label was a publisher.
Yeah,
because they're the ones that are going to get the tunes onto your FIFA, onto your sitcom, onto your Netflix, onto your films, onto radio, getting synced. But I also have a little experience in this kind of the sync world, and I've seen it just feels very soulless to me. And I don't want to disrespect anyone that has like made music, library music. I don't disrespect them, but it's not for me. I don't want to I can't actually churn out that much music because they have to make hundreds of records before they make any return.
Oh yeah,
and
and then they can make a massive return though, to be fair. So it's
again,
one of those.
Like, to me, it was like a big ether, and it all comes back to what you said earlier about your time. It's like I'd rather make I think original music that has been made for the sake of being made, as opposed to library music, gets featured on things more often anyway. So why would I go and make library music? And then, so to have a publisher try and represent my original music, to me, was more important. But I couldn't get a publisher because there are some parts of the record that are a bit too spicy for publishers to touch because they want everything to be sample cleared.
Yeah,
I've got a publisher lined up for album 2, I think. But his question was,
Brilliant.
his publisher said, the publisher said, have you got ample clearance for this, Jimmy? And I said, no.
So let's go on.
That is a great name for an album.
That's how the name came about.
Right.
Nice.
Let's move away from the grey, horrible, admin-based world of business music because I nearly died listening to that.
You're right there, mate.
Publisher, bloody hell. Right, okay, so what I really want to know from you, because as a DJ and somebody who's produced, I have produced tunes. My ego got in the way and my ego went, that's the best tune ever. And I dropped it in a set and the dance floor died.
Oh, no.
Right. So there is an inherent risk in making your own music and thinking that music's going to make the dance floor boom. And when it doesn't, there's a massive ego hit. So I want to explore that because it takes a lot of balls to play your own music.
I think this is why remixing is quite important to kind of just see where you're at because, and also like getting the feedback from other people being like, we love this shit. This is cool. That's important too. And that's why I set up my Patreon because I was like, I'm putting all this free music out, but I'm not really getting anything back. People are really enjoying my music. I'm not really getting anything back. If people really believe in this shit, just buy me a coffee once every month. You know, that was the kind of the slogan behind it. And people put their money where their mouth was, and they support me on Patreon. So, and seeing, you know, I get on my phone, I'll get people send me videos of them playing tunes out. There's a new track actually on the album that's out at the moment called Vamos that's been re-released on a Spanish label. And the reason it's been re-released in Spain is because they've got a massive breakbeat following in the South, and it's a southern Spanish label from the South, and the guy's amazing who runs it. And I've had people like being like, your tunes are getting played at this festival. Like, you know, it's like, oh, wow, brilliant. Okay. So sonically we're there with the original stuff and the remix stuff. And I think starting out remixing, like, you know, other people's tunes is a great way to test sonically if it works. And also, like, you know, making dance records as well is like is a language. There's just a certain way to do it. And if it doesn't follow that formula or that structure or that kind of, they're almost intuitive. It's weird. It's like they have to be this way, but also once you've learned that, you can unlearn it and do weird shit. So, you know, there's like
those
unwritten rules
where the person in the crowd goes for it, and then you're like, "Ha,
gotcha, gotcha." Exactly. So, like, you know, there's all these little bits that you just pick up from other people's records. You assimilate that, and then you try and do it yourself. And have I played? Yeah, I've played edits and remixes that have gone wrong and haven't really worked. And that might have been because it was a shit idea or it didn't sound sonically good enough on the floor. And I think those are two things to kind of separate, because if you have an amazing idea that sounds shit, it still might rock a dance floor. I take you back to those early 09 SoundCloud bootlegs that people are like, Jimmy, we still play that. I was like, my sir, that is not mastered. Do not play that at all. Like, it's like Royksop versus Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, The Message versus Apple or whatever, and it's just fucking garbage. And but back then, that was like, this guy's blending all these crazy genres. The idea was the best part
This
of
is
that.
the thing.
The
And I
idea
think
and the
ideas are
execution of the
stronger.
idea.
Ideas are stronger.
Absolutely.
Ideas first, execution second. I think.
Everyone's after louder this, louder that. Just turn it up, man.
Well, I'm gonna go opposite what you said there, and I think production over idea, and I'm gonna tell you for why, and I may alienate a lot of the people listening here. Well, actually, no, because it's a music-based podcast, so it won't be. But your general 90% of the crowd do not know about music. They're not there for the music. They're there for the drink. They're there to attempt to pull. And they just want to literally physically be rocked by that speaker go, so I kind of feel for your idea to work over it, for a good idea to work with bad production, it must be a really fucking good idea. But the nuts and bolts of any production has to be the sound quality and how it's produced, because
the low end is like, you've got to get your low end right. But I don't know.
This is what I was saying. This is what I was saying earlier. Like, I said, like, I saw like a Featurecast DJ in Southampton, and I thought that the bar is set. That is where the bar is set. The idea, the sonics, the scratching, the seamlessness of the set, and the crowd rocking ability. That is what I deem where my bar is set for making records and playing those records out, or playing any records out really. But that's where the bar is set for my own productions, as opposed to like, other people's music. So, that, yes, it's, you can't have one without the other. You have to have a great idea. Now, I don't think like if I put that mashup up today, it would get any love at all, because the bar has risen. That's what happens in music. Everything just steps up a bit.
Those sorts of things as well are contextual. I mean, like, back then that would have been quite novel, new idea wise. Like
exactly.
The challenge with ideas is that they have a time limit. It's no longer innovation once it's been done. So I hear you on that. But I do think the thing that when I think back to like gigs I've been to and stuff like that, where I've come home and been like, oh, that was particularly special. Lots of that is stuff like DJ Yoda playing Super Mario, like just stuff where you're like, that's just so left field. Like, you can judge whether that's a good thing or not, but like, I remember it. I remember the night. I remember who I was with. I remember all these things. And like, bearing in mind, I struggle to remember what I did yesterday. Like, that's quite, I think that's quite impressive. Now, sure, like, he's a professional and it will have been to a certain sound quality, but I do think it's the ideas that people remember more than they do the sonic impact of what they received when they
I think so. I mean, I've played shows on like shoddy sound systems before and still got away with it. And you might have to write off a few tracks that are particularly heavy because it won't sound very good, but you can still rock it. I played a wedding once where we only had there were no subs. It was just the top bits, and I was like, "Where's the subs?" Oh, the venue's not allowed the subs. I was like, this is going to sound shit.
Yeah,
but I still managed to get away with it. Crank the monitor up, on the. But again, that was the Sonics weren't on my team that time, but the execution was, and I managed to actually get away with it. So, and I think there's always this. Do you remember that tune by Dan Lassac and Scroobius Pip?
Scroobius Pip, yeah,
yeah, and he goes, "Don't produce me." Yeah, don't play. Is it don't play music to get into their pants? Use it to get into their heads. And it's always stuck with me, because it's like, if you can fuck with people's heads as well a bit. This goes back to what you're saying about like that Super Mario thing. It might have been very left field, but it's stuck with you. So
it got my attention.
It got your attention.
Attention is half of the battle these days.
Exactly.
I think that's why so many DJs. It's all social media and all this stuff now, because it's about whether you can get people's attention.
Oh fuck!
Can you get them to come down? I've got a question for you though, mate.
Oh, is he going to be allowed the question?
No, yeah. Yeah, we have a habit of blocking my questions. This is totally unrelated to what we've been talking to so far. But you're a professional DJ. You go out and do lots of gigs. And I just wonder if you've got any, like, what your sort of favourite story is from the years of doing DJing that you've done? You know, something ridiculous that happened, or just like something uplifting and warming, or something totally barbaric.
Man.
Like, give us, you know, some of the stories from war stories, if you like. From
I'm going to give
history.
Props to my man. Do you know Chris Arnold? He also goes by the name of the Beatles Dub Club. He's got a podcast called The Worst of Times. I implore you to go check that out after this because it's hilarious. And he basically interviews artists, celebrities, everything from like huge celebrities to kind of grassroots musicians about the worst things that have ever happened to them. Not the best things. It's brilliant. And we all, of course, like we've themed mine around gigs and awful times. Okay, so I have there's a bit of overlap, but this is one I tell pretty much everyone because it's just mental. And there's another one that is a life lesson. So the first one was one of the first shows back after COVID. So I think it was September. I don't know if you guys played out in September 2021, but my fucking God, the crowds wherever you play were just up for it, man. It was just
was that lockdown?
After lockdown was all gone, no more
seated.
restrictions. Everything had gone back to normal by then.
Okay.
I think you started to wear masks in hospital, which was totally understandable. But like there was this high that just lasted all the way until Christmas that year. I remember every gig, no matter how big or small, was just fucking incredible. And it was just you could really feel that people really missed going out and loving the music.
Back, yeah.
So basically during lockdown, the Symphonica Orchestra with Mr. Switch. So Mr. Switch being a good friend of mine who I met on the festival circuit a long time ago. We've been great pals ever since. Started an orchestra of a guy called Miles, and it was all like meant to be Ibiza classics and stuff. So, you know, late 90s house, trance, some trip hop jams, some breakbeat jams, all played by a live orchestra and a DJ. And it's great fun. So I had a little bit of a part of that, kind of arranging the drum beats and stuff, because Tony's production, he needed something a bit sonically that would kind of hit heavier because these are big gigs. So he was like, yeah, sure, I can help arrange these and master them for you. And because I knew the arrangements, I think they realized that Tony couldn't do all of them because Tony now works for Pioneer. So you couldn't balance everything, I think. So I did a few, and it was my second one, but my first one on my own in Worcester. And it was about 2 or 3 minutes before we're going to go on stage. So I've got no Tony to my right hand holding me on this. It's just me on my own. So if I miss a cue, there's either going to be silence, or I'm going to play the wrong thing, or it's just going to go to shit.
And for context, these are big gigs.
Well, not only that, but there is literally an orchestra. It's not just
there's an
DJ.
orchestra.
Yeah.
And
So,
big gigs. They're 10,000 people, aren't they? Some of these
easily.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
So
this one was
these
nuts.
are big gigs, folks, right?
So yeah, and a lot of people with these orchestras, there's a click track and everyone just plays to that. The DJ is the click track. So if you miss the one, which is what the conductor is the one, and classical musicians are tight as fuck as well. Like they're so on it. They have to like watch them out of the corner of an eye and play, and they still hit the one. If I don't hit the one when the conductor says, it will be out of time. So I have to be on my A game. So I need my hands to do exactly as I tell them to do when I tell them to do it. So what would be a really fun thing? Of course, this is, again, post-COVID. Everyone's having a kind of, everyone's very, very kind of conscious of like being clean and having their hands washed and stuff. So I went to the toilet and about 3 minutes before we went on stage, and I had a pee. I'm a little nervous wee, and I then went to use the hand sanitizer. I was like, great. Why the fuck is this not evaporating? And it turns out it was soap. So I was like, fine. So I'm in the little portaloo thing, and I'm pushing on the little tap on the floor for the water to come out. No water's coming out. So I got these big soapy hands, fucking suds everywhere. Oh fuck! So I went to the one next door, and I think there were 3 or 4 backstage. Couldn't remember. Mars was like, Jimmy, we're on in like 2 minutes, mate. Can you hurry up? And I was like, yeah, just I'll be right there. And went into the next portaloo, and there's no water in that one either. I was like, how are people washing their hands here? Went to the next one. And we had to wear all black, right? So if I'd just gone like that on my trousers, there would be these big soapy suds all over my left. And I literally had no time to even think. It was like, right, make some noise for the Symphonica Orchestra. And I was like, fuck. So I ran up. I just basically was like, wiped my hands on my jeans, and it was like lavering up, and I was getting all sweaty and nervous. And because I'm sweaty and nervous, it was making all the bubbles and stuff laver up in my hands. So basically, I was playing half the set on a Rain 1 controller, like bit like the one behind me. And there was just like suds all over the decks, and I was like releasing stuff late, and stuff was slipping out of my hands. And like these jog wheels are not exactly like vinyl; they're very, very,
very slippery.
They'll react very well to a clammy hand, shall we say? But this was just like it was just. Oh man! And Miles was like, "Jimmy, is Jimmy all right?" Like, I've never actually told him this until I said, "Listen to the podcast." I told the story, and I managed to get through the gig, but it was just pure adrenaline. I think I was a husk by the end of it, because even like I was just like, "Someone bring me a bottle of water or something," but because there's wires everywhere, I can't just wash my hands whilst I'm on the stage. And halfway through the gig, the orchestra takes a break and I do a half an hour set. So I can't even go off halfway through and just like sort myself out. So I have these clammy hands, bubbles, soap. Oh, it was horrible. Got to the end of it. This is like 2 hours later, got to the end of it. And I think I'd sweat so much that the bubbles had finally made their way off my hands. I was like, that was a fucking stressful gig. That was a stressful gig. Anyway, so
did it again though.
I went back to so basically the situation is this: despite having the cleanest hands in history, the next day I tested positive for COVID. So,
oh mate, that's Sod's Law.
Sod's Law.
It's a podcast about turntablism, and it's also the odd dad joke.
So I feel like if people have made it this far, then they have the nerd power to really get into some deep scratch nerdery. And I've been looking forward to this, because Dan is one of the biggest scratch nerds I've ever met. Jim is one of the biggest scratch nerds I've ever met. And I just want to sit down and be bathed in the nerdiness. So come on, boys. I know Dan's been waiting to really dig in. So let's have it.
Right, first things first. And you said earlier about seasoning, the sort of seasoning of scratching.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's quite interesting, right? Because we run scratch jams, and I go to quite a few scratch jams as well, just outside of that. And I obviously I spend quite a lot of time looking at scratching content online. When you turn up at the Scratch Cafe, it's really clear that there's levels. Yeah. You've got a style. You've got like there's a Jimi Needles scratch coming. And when you get on, it's like it's captivating to watch. Compared to you could be. Honestly, so. There's the technical bit of, I can swing flare at 180 BPM or whatever. But there seems to be this sort of magic sauce that's like your swing flares sound better than than someone else's, and I just wonder how you've developed that, like how that's come about. How did you get a style? Like, give us a little bit of background on that stuff.
I think it's. There's one piece of advice I got given. I can't even remember who it was by, but it was always try and be funky no matter what you do with the scratching, because otherwise, if you just focus on the technical, if you can be technical and still funky, that's a nice place to be. That's where I would put myself: technical but funky. Sometimes aggressive, and that's because I used to watch a lot of like battles and stuff. I guess you assimilate what you watch and then you try and replicate and you add your own touch to it, don't you? That's despite not being a DMC person at all, that's the route I chose, and I would do that route all over again. And the other thing I used to do was just jam at different tempos, because you'll meet some people, especially at the cafe, who are like, this is not my tempo.
Yeah, we get that quite a lot.
The thing is, there's always polyrhythms within other tempos.
Yeah, I mean, you can basically switch to triplets.
But then that is also, though, that is, to you and I, that's a very basic that in musical terms, any musician, a polyrhythm is a very easy concept to grasp. But I think if you're, I think Random was saying in the last one, he wasn't musical at all, but he knew he could pull off some scratches and he just got it.
Well, he says he's not musical, but he's probably one of the most musical motherfuckers I've chatted to.
Exactly. Despite his taste in needles and stuff, you know.
Watch out, because we'll have to call him again.
You only get one call a day with him. He won't pick up.
Exactly.
Yeah, true.
What do you want? The polyrhythm thing really, I think it's when I started playing drums is when I started experimenting with different tempos, because I was like, fuck, this is, if I just do this in a kind of triplet time, that's the same tempo as a 85 BPM tune, you know. So drum and bass becomes hip hop, becomes 145, becomes, you know, so you're doing different multiples. And when I listen to like music like that, I don't listen to it as a 1 3 2 3 4. I listen to it as a 1 2 gap 3 4 gap 1 2 gap 3 4 gap. So you just play around that space differently, and I think that's truly how I've developed that style, because being a multi-genre DJ, then you mess around with different tempos,
all different tempos.
And always when you're rehearsing or just having a jam, you know, do it first thing in the morning. Do your coffee afterwards, have your spliff afterwards. A lot of the people I used to like, you know, jam with would always want to get baked and then go and scratch. No, don't do it that way. I'm not a weed head. I can't handle weed at all. But that makes no sense to me. Do it afterwards. Do it after. Have your caffeine, have your weed afterwards. Jesus.
Yeah.
Because you can't learn when you're baked, man. When you've had a biff to too many, you're just like, I'm just gonna sit over there now. You know, have a clear head, because you'll remember those rhythms for next time. And then also, when you're really hating it, you know, when you go through these phases of just being like, this is shit, just give it a week off.
Yeah.
Come back, because you'll come back and you'll be like, oh, this sounds great, and you'll be happy with yourself again. Believing, you know, those are three things they sage nuggets I'd pass on anyway.
That really helpful, mate. And I want to drill into one of them a little bit. So if I'm sort of listening here and I'm a budding scratcher, I want to get my scratching better. You talked about, you know, be funky and technical, right? I think technical speaks for itself, right? You can become kind of like, technical is quite easy for people to understand, but funky isn't. And so I just wonder how you would describe funkiness to people who are thinking, how do I become funky?
Again, I think the funky, if you look at the funk, as for me anyway, the funkiest scratch techniques are the ones that are the most basic.
Yeah.
This is where I live. The concept of funk as a bass player.
Yeah, man.
An instrument, sitting back on that beat, sitting a little bit forward. When you're learning, you're kind of like, it's not tight. And you're making yourself really tense up, trying to be tight. I need to be like a quantized machine.
It's the looseness.
But the moment
you got to be on the one. You got to chop on the one, you know.
A little bit before the one, little bit after the one. You know, sit with those hats on the funk.
Exactly.
But, you know, it's funny you should say about...
Yeah.
Go on.
It's also not playing as well.
Yeah.
You know, just because you can do...
Silence is powerful.
Exactly. Just have a breath, because it's like that breath can mean everything in terms of how other listeners perceive what you're doing. Like, you know, there used to be like, you know, if you'd I've actually got a recording on my computer of me scratching when I think I was a baby, maybe 14 or 15. And I'll find it and I'll send it to you at some point. It's quite funny, but it's me scratching that brake, like car braking sound. And it's just me just repetitively just going, but da 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 da. And it's just like, if I had just stopped in between a few of those notes, it would have sounded way better.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. But do you know what? So that's a really interesting point, right? And I wonder whether you do this. One of the things that I often say to students, right, is record yourself and watch it back, because it becomes so painfully obvious what you're doing that's mucking it up or not making it sound good. Like there, you're just like, you know, you watch it and you're like, da 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 da. It's like, I just need a breather in here somewhere, and it would have doubled
Well,
its
no.
musical impact.
It's even more important though, isn't it? Because when you do a scratch, you're like, that was fucking amazing. But when you record it and listen to it back, you're like, oh, it wasn't actually that good, was it?
Oh, there's I used to scratch for this. There was these hip hop duo from London called the Mitchell Brothers, and I used to do some scratching for their producer. I never knew if any of it ended up on record. I'd never be able to prove that, but I'd go to the studio and I would suck. I would absolutely suck. Red light syndrome, and the only way to get past that is just by practicing. Unfortunately, it's like I kind of used to get home from college and just like plug in my decks and scratch for 2 hours and then do my homework. I just let it out of my system. Like I got to just have a cut. And those 2 hours became 3 hours and the grades started to go downhill.
Yeah. You got your history degree though, mate.
I did. At uni, it was all about playing parties and stuff. And the university, they wouldn't. Basically, before I moved to university, I had a next door neighbour who was about to emigrate to New Zealand, and I bought these fucking massive speakers off him. And I'm like, they'll be great at uni. And I took them, these fucking huge speakers, these giant Pioneer speakers, and I took them to uni. And when we got busted for having parties and it was too loud, they wouldn't confiscate the speakers because they were too big. They couldn't get them out of the building. So they were like, we're just going to have to take your library card. I'm like, oh no, you've taken my library card. How will I study now?
Honestly, they punished you by taking your library card.
Fucking twat. And then the guy who I had to go and pick up the library card from was a musician himself. He was just like, don't do that again. See you at the venue on the. Because there was only like one venue in town.
Can I borrow your speakers, mate?
Can't get them out, mate. You're gonna. No, you need a crane.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that, right? Because when I started university, I was in Halls in Manchester, and I met a guy in Halls, and he was, I think he was a wealthy lad. His dad was wealthy, but he was quite entrepreneurial, and he wanted to start something. So we bought this. He paid for it all, and I just kind of, because of the DJ connection, that's why I was involved. But he bought this sound system off this like club owner in Leeds, and it literally was enormous. I mean, It was enormous. And they did come try and shut it down, looked at it, and was like, we don't even know how we're gonna lift that. But in the end, I did injure my back quite badly lifting it up, and that was the end of my sound system days.
Oh dear!
Yeah. It was
that's why we
savage,
haven't seen a Scratch Cafe sound system for that reason. Then
that's precisely it, mate. Because I can't lift it above my head anymore. I've done my lower back too much damage. So yeah, watch out, guys. It's not all fun. Make sure you have a library card so they can take that instead.
We're lucky enough to know personally one of the gods of the UK turntablist scene, and that is DJ Quest. Like probably one of the most impressive impressive everything.
You say that like you watch me and you're like, wow. I watch him and I'm like,
yeah,
But yeah, so it's the two very defined differences between yourself, Jim, and Quest. And I'm not going to go into Quest too much because we are going to get him on, because that guy is just like that guy's an absolute like lunatic when it comes to turntablism and how to rock it.
I used to like, when DJ Mag used to actually fucking talk about turntablism, like he was like, when I was a kid, he was like winning the UK like titles and stuff, and I was always like, oh, brilliant! Like UK's actually brought it home, that was like, that's awesome. So I know he didn't win world, but he certainly was UK champion. Is that right?
Yeah. He was UK champion. Yeah, but he said to me, look, technical is impressive to people that understand technical. But at the end of the day, it's musicality, and that's what you bring so well to it. You have that perfect balance of technicality and musicality. Yeah. And when you watch Quest at the Cup, I can tell when he's just like, I'm just going to dick swing for a couple of minutes. Yeah, and he'll do something mental, and it doesn't sound that good, but what he's doing is absolutely stupid. And like
everyone just turns and goes,
it's just like,
I'm like, woo!
Who invited Miles Davis? Yeah.
And I come from the other end, from scratch. You know what I mean? I've been when we started the Scratch Cup. Really, I wanted to do it to get my ass handed to me to get better, because I came from the rave scene and it was very simple, very rhythmic, and that suited me down to the ground because I was a bass player and a musician. So sitting there just doing real rhythmical patterns was all I was about. And then I saw the hip hop boys doing this mental stuff. I was like, okay, I need to get my ass handed me. And there's been a real real conception with me with actually understanding the technical, but my brain just switches off at a certain point. When me and Dan talk, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a swing 2-kick flare followed by this and that," and I'm just like, "Oh, how do you what?"
You're getting a window into our conversations. That's all I do. I call him up and talk about flares.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I stop naming them. I just do. Yeah. I'm sure someone like D Styles or Qbert probably is the same. It's like, I don't know what this combo is, but it is. It just is. It's all built off like all these other techniques that they've mastered, and then I think it gets to a certain point where it's a bit like skateboarding, like the difference between that is you don't have loads of gatekeepers in the comment section going, that wasn't a 720.
Well, mate, this is an interesting segue, right? Because when we started doing the CAF, right, we were like, right, how do we engage a younger group of people? We want more turntablists in this world. We want scratching to be more part of modern DJing, which of course it isn't, and that's a whole topic in itself. But I went onto TikTok and I started building a following on TikTok. And actually it lifted off quite quickly. And I got to a certain number of followers and I started to get a troll. And this guy, he followed every video round, and he'd be like, it's not called a forward scratch, it's called a cut. And it's like, mate, it's called a forward scratch. It's been called a forward scratch for a very long time. But, and I put one up. This was great as well. It was a slow autobahn, right? And
for fuck's sake.
And this guy goes, that's not an autobahn. Autobahns are, a close fader. And I was,
let me guess, zero. Fader. He had zero content, right?
Yeah, I was like, hang on a minute, mate. So firstly, it's not an autobahn. It's a slow autobahn. Read the title. The second thing is, you're wrong about what you're even saying. And I was just like, but these people, they can't.
Every technique was invented by Qbert.
Yeah. That's it. Oh, we're going to have some fun on that, by the way, because Hugh Wackman actually invented the crab, right? And we're going to have Hugh on the show. And I'm going to dig into that.
Will Hugh talk publicly about this? And have you just really ruined our chances of getting Hugh on?
I think he.
Who is your favourite?
Who's top of the pops?
Bristol. Let's start local. Bristol. I think the best actual cutter in Bristol.
Yeah,
is Asian Hawk.
Unreal.
Okay, yeah.
Oh man, he's just fucking ridiculous. Because he comes around here. And when we used to do those 9-10 person jams in the studio, all eyes on Asian Hawk is just ridiculous. And he'd be the last one here, just be me and him. Everyone else would have gone home, and me and him would be like, "Fuck this guy." So however fast I can go, it's just the speed is just ridiculous. Yeah. And he's a sick DJ as well. So because I don't think the option of battling anymore is attractive to him anymore. I think he just wants to DJ and
he's also a really good musician.
Yeah, he's a singer.
He's DJing as well. He will play what the crowd want. He's got the crowd bit right as well. It's like, God, how are you so talented? There's always these people in life, though, aren't there?
But his scratching is just like, fuck, man, that's great. That's great.
I tried to start a Bristol beef between him and Quest.
Yeah, there's much love in Bristol.
Just for fun. I was like, hey, you two should battle. And then they're both like, no, we're adults, boy.
Yeah.
Shut up, please.
Nice try.
Okay, sorry.
You need to get them to say something about each other's mothers or something, and that'll start a battle.
Keep that in craze.
Postcode war.
Non-Bristol based top scratcher.
Yeah. Fuck. Have I given this any thought? I think, in England, in the UK, Prime Cuts.
Yeah,
I said it.
Prime Cuts came up in the last podcast, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, what an innovator as well.
I have warmed up for him, who is in turn warmed up for Qbert, and I think he gave Qbert a run for his money.
Really?
Because not only is he fucking tight as hell, lovely guy too.
Yeah,
he's tight as fuck. He's funky. He can scratch like an absolute barman on both hands, which is something that I dream of. He just kills it, and I love it. And I think watching him and doing solo stuff, watching him put out his content, and watching him within doing Scratch Pervert stuff is just awesome. Love it.
I love his content where he's recreating records using looping on the. I just think that's because you got to think as well, like, what's your niche on social media? Like, and he's just got this really, it's just fun, you know, because you're like, oh, am I going to recognize this?
He's doing,
He's
doing that proper like primo thing where he's like rebuilding this
rebuild the whole thing. It's so good.
Crazy.
Yeah. Anyone else who's kind of there as well? Anyone else you would recommend people who are maybe new to this world checking out?
Who else is? There's so many dope artists, man. UK. Let's think about other UK peeps. I mean, a lot of my, like, you know, the people that kind of mentor me, I really rate their scratching. Like, you know, Crafty Cuts.
Yeah,
everyone knows Crafty Cuts.
Yeah,
I think he worries about his own scratching too much. But Martin Crafty Cuts' scratching is funky, and
brilliant.
It's like it's in a time capsule, I think. And I don't care. I think it's funky as. You listen to that Trick of Technology record, because that's that's one record that's the last. I think that's the last time I walked into a record shop.
The intro on that, where it's him and A Skills introducing themselves.
Wait there. So the Trick of Technology for me is a drum and bass tune from the 1998 by Prisoners of Technology.
So it's called Tricker Technology.
Oh, Trick. Okay.
Yeah. And it's
exactly. It's a fusion of hip hop, breakbeat, and funk, and a bit of soul in there as well. But there's loads of turntablism kind of like all throughout it, and both A Skills and Crafty are all cutting over it. And I think it's the last time I ever went to a record shop where I was actually like sold a record. Like, go and listen to this, you little shit. And I was like, okay, cool. And that record changed my life. I was at Cheltenham HMV, whoever that guy was, changed my life, because that was the first time I was like, now I want to do this. I want to do this now. So I was also, I was like cutting over, like question and answering the tunes that are on there with my little fucking battered copy of Hee Haw Breaks. You know, like, you know, with the worst Q burn imaginable on it. But, you know, that was an eye-opening record. But Crafty and I did this 50 years of
that was a really good set.
What an amazing
thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We put a lot of man hours into that. We're going to do round 2. We're just going to wait for another 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah, what will it be, though? It will just be mumble rap.
At the last fucking second, Martin goes, let's just put volume 1 at the end of the artwork. And I was like, really? Really? Well, yeah. And then it did really well, and, you know, we're going to talk about it.
Volume 2
but we do all the scratches in my studio, and it's just lovely to see the funky man do his thing, you know. And, you know, he's just like, oh, you'll fucking kill me, Jimmy. But it's like, yeah, but like, you're funky, and that's why it works, you know. And he's like, he's got his hamster style thing going on, and, like, you know, the reverse fade. And I'm like, to me,
like the edge of the record.
Yeah. Cash Money style, like, you know. I think that's what it's called, like, you know, when you. But, you know, that's raw as fuck. I love all that.
It's just respect for the record as well.
Exactly.
I'm not going to put my hand on the top of it. I'm going to hold the side of it and scratch it like
you know, listening to those like records where a lot of the scratches, admittedly, are just like either chirps or there's like incomplete chirps that are kind of done at different tempos. That was when I also realized that being funky was the way into people's heads, like with this thing, because that's how you do it. And
you can almost sing his scratching, you know. It's like
nice.
Yeah.
It's like, so I love what he does. Non DMC peeps who are killing it. I guess again, people like, I don't know, A Skills is a fucking insane scratch DJ as well.
He's awesome.
In the world, and I don't know where he's gone, but I used to really rate this guy. He used to be Z-Trip and DJ Radar.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember any of this shit, but he used to do the orchestra stuff.
Did he?
He used to do like loop pedal scratch beats of an orchestra. That's risky.
Yeah.
But he used to get away with it. And then he made this thing called the Concerto for Turntables that actually Mr. Switch goes out and does a few times a year. Just rocks up and smashes a concerto with with an orchestra. So it's nuts. But I used to really rate his like scratch beats. He used to really, really fun. And DJ Rectangle. I used to love that shit.
Rectangle,
that was man, some battle beats. Some of those battle beats are just brilliant to jam to. Just also like there was this one record where it was clearly like a kind of one of those kind of like Shaolin movies that Wu-Tang kind of got inspired from. He's ripped all those film quotes.
Oh yeah, he'll just cut 10 minutes from a film and cut it to vital.
Exactly. He's like, now then, let us see if you're as good as they say you are. And then it's just like him doing some fucking 10,000 click transforms. And you're like, I don't know what's going on. What the fuck? So, that was amazing to hear. Like, there's a lot of like growing up as like a teenager who had like access to like LimeWire and Kazaa. It was very easy to just type in scratch video and it'd come up. And once you got through the porn, you could get you could actually
shut down all those boxes.
Jesus, I remember listening to this I downloaded this. It was like it was meant to be DJ Cuba, D Styles, Mellow D, and Shortcut in Japan. And there was just like fucking 1,000 Best X turntables all set up. And they're all on different tiers. They're all going nuts. And I was like, Mum, come and check this out. And I clicked the video thinking that's what I'd re-downloaded. There's a fucking penis just hanging out. I'm like, my mum's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, sometimes it does that, Mum. And it's like, right, okay.
You got to be careful with it. I was at a gig in Newcastle, and it was a New Year, and it was the after party, and the DJ in there had obviously downloaded, and it was what's it called? That Day and Night, that tune, right?
Yeah.
And he'd obviously downloaded it and not listened to it before he played it in the club, because the version of it he had just had someone really badly singing over the top of it instead of the vocal. And it dropped at like 4 a.m. Everyone's spangled out of their minds.
My God.
And it was just like, oh, mate, you haven't checked this, have you? And he's there like,
downloaded from mp3site.com. That's the worst. Yeah. I'm guilty of that. When I'm like, oh, fuck, I need to grab a tune because someone's requested it.
Are you doing YouTube rips? Are you putting YouTube rips up?
Don't
Jimi
do it.
News?
Prep your sets, guys. Prep your sets, guys. Prep your sets, because this is what happens. Jesus.
So as scratching goes, and I asked Random this, and I'm probably going to ask every guest this, right? Where can it go from here? Because I feel like scratching and turntablism has got... It keeps reaching the point of which technology stops everybody now, and I'm not going to go into my button pushing rant because it's pointless. I might do it sometimes to annoy people, but not now. So where can we go as artists and turntablists now? Because I feel everything's been done, and people say this about music, and music still continues changing. But scratching techniques, turntablism, is there anything new to be found? Do you think? And have you found anything new?
This the thing is that innovation, really, isn't it? Because I think without technology, it doesn't stifle innovation, but also with the technology, it improves it. So it's fucking weird, because if you look at like scratch DJs before the crossfader, if you'd ask that same question to people, what can you see happening? Oh, well, a volume that goes sideways would be nice, but no one would have even...
There's that mixer that's got volumes that go that way. And you're
the Eckler?
The Eckler Smack, yeah.
Garbage. Absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. Who the fuck thought of that?
Eckler, who are actually a really fucking good mixer maker.
I know, the 380s, I still to this day wish the 380 could have like Serato in it, because it's just incredible. Best fader ever.
Best fader ever, literally. I did choose my oh god, I forgot my Yuri 1601 over the Smack 360. I chose that mixer over it, and yeah, I'm standing by it.
Are you really? I went on that last week at the cafe.
You didn't like it?
I was like, what the fuck is this?
You didn't like it, Jim?
I didn't like it. You know what? Can I say why I didn't like it? Because
tell me what you didn't like.
No, it's even more simple than that. When I clicked the fader, the mixer moved.
Yeah,
well, that's not the mixer's fault. That's mine.
But when does I can click fucking this? Look, and it like moves like doesn't move. I click the urine, whatever it's called, fucking
How dare you?
the urine fucking one, whatever it's called, and it moves like 5 light years to the left, and I'm like,
All right, Sam. Well, the next scratch calf, it will be there. There will be blue tack under its feet because there were people. We have had people that
you will be purely restricted to using it. As well,
you're banned. Yeah.
on the right side. Damn it! That's my weakest side.
So where can it go, Jim? I mean, you did this really funny move on the record, which I'm assuming is yours.
That's the gimmick. There's like that encyclopedia fucking whatever.
Yeah.
It's called.
Wait, sorry for the audio people. What I just did is I spread my hands out. And I spread the right hand out and went on it. And Jim does this action on the record where he's moving the record forward and back with the left hand, and he is using his right hand in between the fingers to make a with those. I
remember going up to Ollie at do you know what that scratch is called? It's got a name. It's got a name. It's called the rake.
The rake.
And he was like, he pretty much did the same thing. He just laughed at me and then tried to do it himself.
That video is up. That video is up on the Scratch Cap page, I think.
What tech do you want to see next, Jimmy? You get some of the nice, juicy tech delivered to you at various points, right? And I just wonder what your thought is on the new tech, and then if you think there's anything missing.
Mate, there is always something missing, and that's why they will always bring out the next thing. But then they'll bring the next thing they bring out will also have something missing.
Yeah.
So that's why the Technics turntable is king, because it's just a shell that does exactly what it says. You can't better that unless you move to CDJs, really. So, but this is behind me. For those who are listening, I have the Rain Performer, and the most difficult thing with these things when you sent something from the manufacturer and you're a Rain artist is trying to learn all the things it does in a stupidly small amount of time, whilst also being really fair. Because I don't want to go out and say this product is absolutely incredible. There's nothing wrong with it at all. There's loads of things that this thing has, like this controller has done right, and there's a few things that I would change, and there's like 1 or 2 things that can be solved with a firmware update. So that's as balanced as I can say. But I would never go out and say I mean this is literally amazing for doing TikTok and Instagram content, because I don't need to go into the studio now and line up an acapella. I can just press a button. Boom. And the AI will do it for me. Sure, you can do that on an S9 or an S11 as well, but I think
you can do some separation on that, right? So you can just put them onto different channels, like with the click of a button. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. I think, because if you look at the trend of DJs, right, you've got they're more and more going into production, or they're more and more going into performance, or they're more and more going into both, right? And I think that more, the performance pads thing is the start of the like producer kind of amalgamation with DJing, right? It's the start, it's the technology start of that. Stems is another layer of that. I can imagine a scenario where you've got like, tech that literally has your whole, like it's an all-in-one standalone thing that you can scratch, DJ on, but also produce and live remix and live sample and all that sort of stuff. I think that's where it's going to end up. We're nearly there now.
I think so. That this kind of is like, this is like the, if that is where it is truly going, then this thing behind me is probably the genesis of that, because all you'd need, if it was like a modular thing where you could then attach like a drum machine to it,
modular I think is another area.
Then you need like MIDI on there, USB MIDI or MIDI ports out, MIDI throughs to keep it all in time. There are ways you do that from the laptop as well, but if you want to keep it all hardware and laptop for this kind of thing, that's definitely one way it could go. I also see controllers that are these really heavy, kind of robust, all-in-one kind of packages. if they can start taking like USB, like like USB sticks, like for a record box, then I think a lot of scratchers would, who also use record box, would go, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Because, or even all for Serato, because that would really change how you could rock up. Instead of expecting a pair of CDJs, you could expect one of these, plug and play, no laptop needed, even quicker. I see that becoming a thing as well.
Standalone thing. I mean, I am sick of laptops. I hate.
Are you really?
I hate taking my laptop everywhere. The problem is like it costs a lot of money, like to buy a laptop, and I just think so one of the things that got me excited was Algorithm DJ Pro, the fact that I might just be able to take my phone, and just plug that in.
Yeah.
I'm not brave enough to do it yet, but I really like that. I've just bought myself an MPC Live 2. The reason I've done that is because it's a standalone bit of gear. I don't have to run a computer on it. I don't have to plug everything into a computer. And I do think that modular concept of I can produce stuff live, remix live, I can do some scratching, I can do all of that all on one thing would be really, really cool. Like that would be such an amazing, I'd get excited thinking about it creatively, because there's just so much you could do with that. But then is that really tough for people coming into it? Because
as an example here, as an example, when I was a student, the first time I got my student loan, do you know what I bought?
What'd you buy?
QFO.
Yeah, we got one at the back there, mate.
Unzips. And it was that, I think, it was a lot of fun. It was really, it was an awesome piece of kit, and that probably contributed to how fast I got with stuff as well. But I sold it because I thought I had to have an MPC to start producing music, and I bought the MPC 2500, and it was back then it was pretty buggy, and I think for a few years it really truly put me off. I think it probably set me back maybe 2, maybe 3 years of creating music, because it just felt very limiting.
Workflow.
Also though, had a newfound respect for the people that did use it, but it wasn't for me. I am a very visual person. I need to see where it all is, and that's why I think making music for me will always remain on from that. For now, I either play it live with a band or use a computer and not use a piece of hardware. Because ultimately, if you're going to make a tune on an MPC, it's going to find its way on a computer anyway to be mixed and mastered. So it's like, well, it is a computer, but it's just without the screen.
And I mean, the MPC Live 2 is just, it's got a screen and it's a computer. It's basically just a computer, but scaled down for. I would struggle if you gave me like an old, or like I look at Pete Cannon and people like that who do things on Octamed with, and I just
that's a big flex, though, isn't it? That's a big flex. That shit. I think that's like a lot of the old school are like, yeah, that's fucking, he's using an Amiga to make music.
He's an epic producer as well, to be fair to him.
There's a really interesting fact to be explored in this subject, and especially going from the DJ equipment to trying to find trends, where it's going to go next. So I recorded Crust doing a promotion for Native Instruments, and I believe it was their Control, and it was a box with no jog wheels, with a mixer all in one, with just buttons. Kind of the next thing that you guys are talking about, Native Instruments did it and it flopped big time. Whether it was because
we have to have such a skill set to use something like that. That's the thing, isn't it?
I don't know. It does it all for you. So whether
that's why it needs to be modular, because then I can add those things as my skill set increases. Because most people are going to come in from one angle. I'm a DJ, so I'll get the DJ bit. But then it's the connecting all the, now I want to learn how to finger drum, or now I want to learn how to do this and do that, and then I can connect those bits together.
It's already kind of there, but not for DJing. There's no live. There's for scratch DJs live production on the fly. Then you've got to kind of go down like the Ableton Live route,
and push it.
I did a massive rant on this, right? And my rant was based on, why are you spending £3,000 on a Pioneer CDJ setup? You're not using its main function, which is sync, and you're literally just playing one tune. Why not get a laptop? Why not build your own live PA setup with a push or controller buttons or other Ableton controlled units? And people kept coming back to me in that thing going, yeah, but if you take a laptop when you go to play, you get laughed off the stage. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Oh, if you can't play on CDJs, you're not a DJ. Oh, what? If you use sync, you're not a DJ. And the whole culture is just holding people back heavily.
Oh man, I think the people that argument is so 15 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
It's still going though.
Oh, mate, I'm not in that. Well, this brings us nicely around to the trolling that we mentioned earlier on. Like, you know, the gatekeeping, like that troll that you had on TikTok and stuff. And I when I do see that, it really sickens me, because that again, like, you know, it is stifling innovation. I bet there were loads of haters when the crossfader was invented. I bet.
Oh yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Well, no, there wasn't social media.
I bet Random would know, wouldn't he? He would know.
Yeah, Random. Well, no, there wasn't social media, and people that were watching that didn't know about it didn't know the crossfader was there. The problem we have now is everybody can DJ and everybody can use this equipment, and everybody, when they start something new, they suddenly go from knowing nothing to becoming an expert. And then when they become that expert, they go online, got nothing else better to do. They just tell everybody. And my learning experience with juggling and scratching, I've posted everything from the start. And I have been trolled relentlessly, but I've got thick enough skin to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know,
it does get trolled relentlessly. Most of it's
Have you not seen Jimmy? Have you not seen
legitimate like haters or just people?
Yeah, big time, massive. I get people like, you know, because I only play with needles and records, so people think I'm a gatekeeper, and people think, I'm going to give him some. He's a vinyl-only DJ and he's scratching. So I'm going to start saying, that's really loose and shit. You need a controller and you need to press sync so it's musical. And to the other point where people go, that's not a beat juggle. I was like, what?
Oh, my God.
What do you mean it's not a beat juggle? No, that's not a beat juggle. It's this. I went, well, what is it? Then video appears from like 15 years ago of them literally beat juggling. It's like, okay, yeah, good.
All right, let's see your beat juggle then, dickhead.
That's always the thing. It's funny though, because like when you're building content, you get your engagement, and then when it gets to a certain level, the platforms kind of open it to the public. And when it hits the public,
when it hits about 2,000 views, it goes outside of your circle, and a lot of my stuff does. And yeah, I get absolutely rinsed. It is absolutely hilarious. I just play the record, mate. Just play the record.
Yeah, it's kind of not the point of the video.
God. Oh no.
But 9 times out of 10, the positive feedback comes from people that can do it and have gone through the pain of getting that skill. And all the negative feedback comes from people that can't do it, think they can do it, or used to do it, and they're seeing their skill set through rose-tinted glasses. So it's,
there's that guy on Instagram who got really big recently called 65 Fish Octagon.
Yeah,
is that what? 69 Octagon Fish. I don't know. What? Yeah, I really love it because it's like he's showing you. He's playing trance records, and I'm not a trance guy. I'm a trance like 90s trance guy, but I'm not a trance DJ. And he's playing some trance, and I'm like, this is banging. I actually quite like this. I'm not even ashamed. Fuck it. Multi-genre, so.
Well,
have you seen his human Shazam? That's hilarious.
It's so good, and I'm like, how did you know? There are a few human Shazams that turned out to be just absolute fucking belters. So like, fair play. But there's I left a comment on one of his videos, not hating. Don't get me wrong, because I love what he's putting out. But he was addressing the people hating on him.
Yeah,
and I was like, why? He's just literally living the dream. Like, just let him do his thing. He's
just a guy that's literally was selling cars, used his social media skills to become a DJ, and he's DJing. It's like, leave him alone. But I think there's a lot of people out there that
but it's just jealousy, I think,
because haven't managed to do it, and they blame every other reason apart from these very small factors that just didn't make it malleable for them, or they didn't love it enough.
I wrote a comment and I said most of the people that are hating are not actually making any content themselves. Yeah, and you just get this vibe that like same kind of people when you're DJing who chew your ear off about back in the day. It feels like you had to sell your record collection back in '97 to make room for the kids. That's the vibe I get from these people. And like I fucking see them a mile off. And the comments when you look at these people who are commenting and saying awful shit to him, you're like, that's you. You either gave up, lost interest, or you hit a ceiling and didn't continue it. And
Well, it gets even
that's
deeper than
fine.
that.
That's fine. Like, you know, if just do something you enjoy, and this is something that he says, go and do something that you enjoy. And I think genuinely he got lucky and it's kind of been catapulted to superstardom. And I think that's awesome. It's the power of social media, you know. But all the haters who are hating on your juggling videos or hating on TikTok on your videos, Dan, or hating on Jimi Needles for being not using needles DJ or whatever, like those people, they all have that same. They're all the same kind of caliber of person.
They're all the same people that were going to JFB. You're not doing that. There's no needles on the record, and he was using phase.
Yeah.
And then to stop all of that, he got his needles and he put the lift up and he put the needles on the record and still used phase.
Yeah.
Did it to stop all that hate, and then they went, "Needle it down, mate." Do you know what I mean? It's not like for some reason.
Like, imagine hating on JFB's
How can
abilities.
you? How can you?
It's fucking insane. Like the guy is like the loveliest guy. He's super talented, and he just any setup he's on will just kill it. And I think he's just
unbelievable.
People can't even keep up with the amount of videos he puts out. So
he went on my SH DJ 1200, one of the worst crossfaders in the scratch like mixer thing, and he absolutely rinsed it on a terrible fader.
I like that mixer. I used to have one of those.
Do you know what though? There are some people out there that will stand up against the trolls. I put a silly thing out the other day that said I marked myself safe from James Hype because I hadn't seen any of his content for a while. And this bloke sent me a comment last night being like, "Why all the hate, man?" And I was like, "Do you know what?" I said, "We messaged back me and saying, good for you for standing up for James Hype." But I mean,
must be one of those. Must be one of the renter crowds or something. I don't know. That's again. Like, I think he's just tapped into that zeitgeist of like the tech, that really kind of commercial end of tech house. It was like no one really knows what any of the tunes are, whoever they're by, but they just seem to be at a party with James Hype. And
he had the balls to look at a piece of equipment and go, "I'm going to do something really simple, and I'm going to do it in the most complicated way possible." He's got the most showmanship.
Yeah,
like I did a video. He did the 1, 2, 3, 4 thing over 4 CDJs. There's 4 hot cues on one CDJ. So you can literally do that with one CDJ. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
But he was doing the cue buttons of all 4. And I just love the fact that he's going, right, what's the most simple, effective thing I can do and do it the most complicated way and really show off. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
I think, I mean, fair play. He's cracked social media.
It makes good content, you know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's the thing. The trolls don't realise when they attack you, they drive the algorithm to send it out. So in some regards, you're like, "Come on, then,
keep hating, Buster, because you're making my reach a lot higher." Oh my god! Speaking of the trolls, the gatekeepers, I haven't really encountered any in real life for a long time. I don't try and roll in those circles anymore because it's. I mean, yeah, sorry, but imagine hating on JFB. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Those people just are not in my circle, and then I just usually block them if anyone's weird. I don't got time for it, man. I don't got the energy. But I set up that page. The can't beat the sound of the vinyls.
Oh my god, you're actually publicly admitting it.
This is a confession.
Yeah. Oh my god!
But it is. It's going to be shut down soon because I think it's actually. We go back to that thing of time is our greatest resource.
Yeah.
Having to and to be fair, the page itself has been banned from so many of the Technics groups and the Vestax groups and the Pioneer groups and even the Bristol group, and it's I can't find because there's you have to find the people who are doing the gatekeeping. We know there's several individuals who are internationally based who this applies to, but they will never know who I am.
Well, they will now. Well, that should depend on it.
Well,
are you Batman?
I don't think they will. I don't think it's big enough. I just don't see, like, there's one individual who always calls someone out on not knowing certain gear, and then ending it with like, you must be an amateur DJ, and that will result. I mean, like, why say that, man? So share a picture of their home setup, being like 1 out of 5, like not using Technics Mark 8s or what was the latest version. No, not using Technics Mark 2s or the latest version of Technics, or just giving them a really awful score out of 5. And then just usually receiving like death threats in the DMs. It's quite entertaining. But this I haven't kept it up recently because it's quite time consuming. So
yeah,
and we've been. I mean, Ollie's an admin. I don't think he doesn't really go on there, but
I don't know. I did a couple of posts at the beginning, but then, do you know what I mean? The toxicity of that page sort of led me away, and then I've just had every consequence from that page possible.
Exactly. So you've had and I think that some of the trolls have realised whoever it is from Bristol, but also hasn't actually got the brain capacity to dig a bit deeper. Because I think if you actually read between the lines, you could probably figure out roughly who is behind the but I'm going to just take you back to it's not all none of it's done in spite. It's usually just sharing
good humor.
It's like in humor, and it's a lot of self deprecation and stuff. It's just a bit stupid. But
what I liked about that page was the fact I thought it was a bit of a parody of me because my spelling's terrible. I like doing the capitals for a joke, and I went on a spree for a while ago. I only play vinyl, pioneer shit, just for fun. For the same reason you did that, I did the sort of opposite parody, and it was like, oh, this is a bit of me here.
Then as well, I've just found the post. So again, I like to just have a little joke with people, and some people will just never get it. In November last year, I basically put out an advert on the Bristol DJs page, which somehow has 50,000 people in it, which is
a lot of DJs in Bristol, mate.
I felt like the Can't Beat the Lovely Sound of Vinyl page was like a mirror. Just look at yourself in the mirror, and everywhere you posted, it was like, look at yourself in the mirror, and everybody looked at themselves in the mirror and got really fucking offended by it. And that was what was really good about that page. But yeah,
the page. There's some people who are in our friendship group and know it's an absolute joke. There are some people who are not that get the joke. There are some people that start off thinking it's real and then realize it's a joke and get on board with it. I like those ones. And there are some people that do not get it's a joke and don't get the jokes, and they're the ones that are offended the most.
Yeah.
I put out this thing in November. I'm not even kidding. Looking for and DJ. Bearing in mind, so all the spelling, the syntax is all incorrect. This is all block. This is all block capitals, right? Block capitals. Spelling is incorrect. Exclamation marks and ones everywhere.
Basically, like all of my posts.
Yeah, it's just you.
Looking for and DJ for New Year's Eve's Lakota to be confirmed. Now, I'd already looked and seen that Lakota had a very solid New Year's Eve lineup already locked in, but that didn't stop me from continuing. It's an trance night, so trance only, and some tech house, in brackets, James Hype haircuts only, exclamation mark, 1111. End bracket. You must supply 6 CDJ 3000s. We have a new Mark mixer. Send deposits to secure the venue at realdjs@denver.com.
It's like something like a phone jacker, mate.
You can only play as long as you want from 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve. The lucky winner will be picked on January 2nd.
And someone responded to that.
Oh, fuck,
people
man.
responded to that.
Oh, people responded to that, all right. And that DJ again, mate.
Yeah.
Took me a while to figure out it's sarcastic then.
Yeah.
We are, and I had to reply to that. So we are and genuine club night. Ask the bar staff at Lakota, for fuck's sake. Some guy was like, You had me in the first half, not going to lie. Consider- so I replied, consider yourself booked, mate. Anthony says, what the actual? Let's see. Lots of people tagging their mates who are DJs who don't get the joke. And the thing is, I purposely did it so that you'd had to press see more to reveal the the pay to play options, basically, which were like bring your own CDJs. So I figured out how it was going to look, and I don't know how that page is not. Oh, it took about 10 minutes, man. But fucking hell, man, so many people didn't get it.
It's just,
it might not be funny, but like the kind of people that don't find that shit funny are usually the gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are the ones that like just need to just leave the scene alone. You know, they need to stay well clear because there's no place for the real hate. You know, I don't. But yeah, make of it what you will.
So
join the group before it gets deleted because it's going to get deleted soon.
So after Can't Beat Love You Sound of Vinyls gets deleted, what is next for Jimi Needles? Where's it going?
Probably real communism for Trump supporters or something. I don't know. Something.
No, forget about your no parody page stuff. What is next? Where's
now we know what you're going to do if you give up DJing.
Yeah, just a full-time internet troll. No, so once I've shut down this page, once I get shut down for real on the internet entirely, I think I probably won't do album 2 this year, but there'll be another album. I'd quite like to sell all my albums first because I've still got not a massive amount, but I've still got quite a few left. You know, little plug.
What? Pop down to the Collector Cave. They'll take some in or say they'll return or buy them off you, Jim.
That's a good shout. I'll do that. I haven't actually. It's all been DIY, man. Like distribution, getting it pressed, mixed. You know, the mastering was taken care of by someone else, but that's like the only thing I haven't done. So it's like, you know, it's a bit of a grind. So you know, I was saying earlier, like, you know, the DJ residencies I've just kind of binned off. They binned me off, so I'm just kind of I'm not hunting for it anymore. I can still live off selling my music, which is awesome. So
amazing,
you know,
man.
that's
amazing.
It's a good feeling.
And
sure.
To be fair, it's difficult to. I don't listen to many albums these days and listen to the whole album, let alone kind of, you know, there'll be 40 seconds of a track I like, you know, generally. And your album I did listen to the entire way through.
Oh, brilliant.
Not because I know you, but because I enjoyed it. It was just really good. And it did have, exactly as you said earlier, such a collection of sounds but cohesively pulled together. So anyone listening, I strongly recommend have a little look. Ample clearance, Jimi Needles, available on loads of platforms. Just search on Google for it. And
if you want the vinyl, you can go to jimmyneedles.com and it'll be right there.
There you go.
It's the only place you can get it right now. So
perfect. Independently launched by what I can only really describe as a modern day DJing legend.
Oh, cheers, man.
Thank you very much.